Hey guys, Technomentary here with the video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be talking about if the iPhone SE 2020 edition or the second edition of the iPhone is still worth getting in 2021. We're going to talk about the hardware, the software, and finally answer that question whether you should get the iPhone SE 2020 edition or not, and we're gonna break everything down for you guys in this video. But before we go ahead and get started, if you guys are new to our channel and haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, as we do a lot of tech news, reviews, and giveaways, of course, all the time. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Also, if you guys are looking to buy a discounted phone like this one, make sure you guys check out the link. We'll hook you guys up in the description section where you can get this phone or any of the newer iPhones for some pretty good deal right now on Amazon and eBay, sites like that. We did unboxing video, as you guys seen. So let's go ahead and get started with today's video. So the iPhone SE, or the second edition one, is actually a predecessor of the iPhone SE, if you remember, that was released in 2016, which was the first edition one. So it's been 4 years since its other predecessor was released, and Apple decided to actually release this around the April 2020 time period, which is a little bit surprising because Apple usually announces their flagship phone around the September-October time frame every year. So they decided to do a mid-year one, which took people by surprise considering that Apple doesn't quite do that. But the one thing that Apple did support about this phone is that it's phenomenal hardware. The A13 chip, what it's supposed to be, or at the time Apple claimed to be the most powerful chip on any smartphones out there. And has it lived up to that expectation? Well, in other videos we discussed it, and it has been pretty powerful. The chip on this phone, well, it is a small phone. It does have almost almost a 4.7 Retina display. It does pack some punch, which it's been the most selling point for Apple on this phone. So as we talked about, it doesn't quite have that OLED technology like the newer iPhone 11, iPhone 10, and the 12, the lineup, Pro lineup does have. Hence why this is one of the reasons why this model is a little bit cheaper in terms of what that 1K versus this one, which is around $399 for the 64 gig model. And if you wanted bigger space, it also comes in the 128 gig model, which is around $449. And if you wanted to max out the storage, you can actually get this in the 256 version as well, which is around $549. So those are the three configurations for the storage of the phone. Of course, you can also get this in multitude of colors. So this phone comes in 3 different colors. As you see here, we have the product red edition, but you can also get this in the black edition or the white edition of the phone. So those are the 3 colors that's available. Like with the other phone, it doesn't, for some reason, Apple didn't have the space gray edition for the iPhone SE one. The other thing you'll notice why the reason why this phone is a little bit cheaper is because of the camera. As you see here, it only has one 12 megapixel camera versus, as you see here, the iPhone 12 Pro, which was recently released in the last release of the Apple phone in 2020, that has the triple camera, but you're paying $1,000 versus only $400 if you're getting the base model of the iPhone. So quite the difference in terms of price. The other thing about this phone is that, with Apple, a lot of folks, analysts, have said that iPhone SE 2020 edition might be a rebuild of the iPhone 8. If you remember, the iPhone 8 is similar size, similar body. It has that front glass and back. So a lot of folks are confused in terms of the size, because size and so much of the similarities between it. It seems almost that Apple might have be reusing some of the hardware left over from the iPhone 8 to build this phone. Nonetheless, the phone is still a phenomenal phone, as we see that if you're looking for something smaller, not really crazy in terms of screen size, looking to pack some power in your pocket to do most of the daily stuff, this phone does have some of that hardware compact into the small device itself, as you see here. The other thing about this phone, it does have water resistivity and wireless charging, some of the notable features because of that bad glass. And Apple recently released the MagSafe wireless charging, which you can use to charge this phone. And this phone itself, as you see, it's very light in terms of the other newer phones. You'll feel a little bit lighter in terms of the iPhone 12 Pro. The 12 mini might be a more of a comparison, which we don't have versus this phone, because the 12 mini are about the same size in your hand. The other thing, of course, the iPhone SE, what happened was Apple reintroduced the home button and then the top notch here. As you know, when after iPhone 8 and the 8 Plus with the iPhone 10 lineup, Apple completely removed that top notch and the bottom notch, and the home button went from Touch ID to Face ID, and then decided to revert back to it, as some folks still like that feeling of having a physical home button versus all screen covered like the iPhone 12 lineup that's available right now in the latest flagship phone. So if you still miss the phone's home button and still love that sort of feedback that you get pressing a physical home button, and don't want to upgrade to one of the more expensive lineup, the iPhone SE is probably your go-to choice, hence why a lot of people go for it. So let's talk about the other aspect of the iPhone SE, which is the camera, right? A lot of folks, the reason why you buy the iPhone, it's the camera, right? It's the camera quality that you're able to get. So if you're doing photography on this phone, it does a phenomenal job in terms of just the photo, and then you do get the portrait mode, which some of the iPhone 7 and 8 regular ones doesn't have it, the smaller size one, because it doesn't have the dual camera. But even with the single camera here, it does give you all that studio lighting and contour lighting, all of that special effect that you get, and the other typical stuff that you would get on this phone. The other thing about this phone is that it's able to record in 4K, so you're able to record up to 60 frames per second. So you're not losing much in terms of the camera. Although it does have a single camera, you are able to record 4K, and the lower end you're able to record at 1080p at 30 frames per second. And as you know, if you go up in terms of the quality of the video, you're going to use up a lot more storage. So you might record a couple of videos before the phone starts to, you see that drop in your storage size of the phone. So those are pretty much the physical hardware itself. Let's talk a little bit about the software. So the iPhone SE actually comes with, out of the box, iOS 13, and currently it's updated to iOS 14. So you can update to iOS 14 if you like that iOS 14 feel. We recently did a video in terms of all the features of the iOS 14 and that you're going to get if you upgrade to iOS 14. And think about this is whenever you're buying iPhones or any phone in general, you think about how long will the software be supported. Well, good news about the iPhone SE 2020 edition is that you're going to get at least 3 to 4 more years or updates on the major update for the iPhone SE. So expect this phone to be around for quite some time. And after that, even after Apple stops the major releases, you get a couple of years after that where apps are still, the major apps are still supported. So in it all, at least 5+ years for this phone easily for you if you're looking for a phone that's going to last for a long time. Let's talk about the app aspect. As you see on our screen, we are able to download pretty much any app because it's iOS 14. That's where app compatibility is the big thing. So if you're looking for a phone to do things such as, productivity stuff like your banking or even your typical Skype, your LinkedIn, all of the productivity tool for a professional, or Google Docs, mail, all of that stuff works phenomenal. If you're looking to use it just for simple calling and texting, and this phone does a phenomenal job. By no aspect, Apple does a phenomenal job in its software that it has, and that kind of stuff is just breeze for this phone. There is nothing stopping for the basic functionality of what a phone is supposed to do, which is, remember back then, it's calling, texting, and being able to just browse without any issues. So if you're looking for that main purpose of a phone, the iPhone SE is, coming at pretty clutch in terms of what it can do for that aspect, of course. So let's talk about the other aspect of the phone is if you're looking to do streaming on this phone. As you can see, we have documentary here up. You're able to do all of that, no issues. Netflix, all of your major streaming apps are pretty well supported. Does phenomenal job in terms of playback, because remember, the only complaint you might hear is that display is a 4.7 compared to the newer phones, which have a 6.1. So as you see here, the display itself looks tiny depending on what kind of display you prefer. If you prefer a phone with a bigger display for video playback, you might consider getting the iPhone SE. Talking about video playback, the battery on this life is pretty good. If you're using it for normal stuff, you're going to last the whole day. But if you're talking about battery, one thing people usually compare is the actual video playback. So on the iPhone SE, does get a few hours less than the iPhone 12 Pro, which is the latest in the market. So you get about roughly 13 hours of video playback versus the 17 on the iPhone 12 Pro. And of course, because it has a bigger battery versus the iPhone SE, you're going to be expected for that. What if you use the phone for social media, your Snapchat, your Facebook, your TikTok, all of those apps? There's no issues with those apps. Those apps open up phenomenally without any issues. If you browse a lot on Reddit, as you can see, once the app fires up, which sometimes depending on your cellular data or Wi-Fi data, it's all dependent on that. So you see graphics are loading up on the fly without really any issues. And the other aspect about this phone is gaming, right? If you're a person looking to use it for gaming, it's a pretty good phone. We even say it probably does a phenomenal job in terms of gaming because of that A13 chip versus the A14, which is on the newer phones. We did play out some games like PUBG that are very heavy on graphic, and this phone does hold up pretty well for that kind of stuff. We see that if you're playing for any games, light games like Snakes or, Subway Surfer, those graphic heavy games, you can play pretty much for hours endless on the battery without seeing any issues. But once you start playing in, games that are very graphic heavy intensive game, you feel the battery does consume up a little bit faster versus your less heavier graphic games. So in it all, to answer the question whether the iPhone SE is worth it or not, well, a couple things here you're going to want to compare is what's in the iPhone 12 Pro that's not in the iPhone SE. Of course, the chipset hasn't changed quite a lot. So the hardware, the only big hardware difference between the iPhone SE and the iPhone 12 Pro is that you have that 5G antenna. So if your carrier supports 5G right now, you're only able to get 4G LTE. And if you have that 5G carrier, you're not going to get 5G on the iPhone SE. So that's the one big thing. The other big thing is around the camera. Of course, as you see here, by physical differences, you have single versus triple lens. 3 is better than 1. Of course, you're going to get more out of your quality of the photos and the videos that you take. Although in terms of specs, you get pretty much the same quality in the software itself. So those are the big things you'll probably notice. And of course, the battery life on the iPhone SE compared to the newer phones like the 12 Pro lineup, it's not quite there, but it still does last pretty well. So the phone itself, we would say, it's a slick phone, and it's definitely worth it in 2021 because it's going to get a lot more updates, and the chip itself is powerful, and the hardware itself pretty much, is at fraction of the cost. You're getting pretty much the same power you would get on the iPhone 12 Pro, and the software iOS 14 and more updates to come. So from our perspective, we say, this phone is definitely worth it in 2021 because of the price point and just the exceptional job it does to do your basic stuff and more advanced stuff and software stability across the board. So hopefully this video was helpful. If this video was helpful, please make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And we want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about the iPhone SE? Is it worth it in 2021? And what phone are you currently using and what your experience is like on that phone? Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time.